A man dies at 21. A city is measured not in people, but in holes. An orchestra climbs a staircase to nowhere and jumps. And between those extremes, someone wakes up late, catches a bus, and lights a cigarette. This is the landscape of a day in the life. Not a diary entry, but a map of how modern life feels when tragedy and routine share the same breath. By 1967, the Beatles had stopped touring and retreated into the studio, building a world inside Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. They opened that world with brass and colour, but they closed it with a silence stretched into a final, unending chord. In that silence sits the question, what is a day, really? Not the plot of events, but the texture of being alive when the news and your own heartbeat are out of sync. John Lennon began with a newspaper. He saw the story of a young London socialite and Guinness heir, Tara Brown, who had been killed in a car crash. The headline became a stanza. He turned reportage into dream. He blew his mind out in a car, not just metal and glass, but a mind, promise, youth, myth, gone. The lines don't eulogise him so much as they watch him vanish into print. A crowd of people stood and stared. Nobody was really sure if he was from the House of Lords. Fame reduces to fragments. Death reduces to trivia. The world's greatest pop band opened their grand finale with a news item and asked whether we still knew how to feel it. Then another article caught Lennon's eye. A piece counting potholes in Blackburn, Lancashire. This wasn't a metaphor. The paper had literally measured the emptiness. Lennon did what artists do. He let absurdity reveal the truth. If you can tally the holes in a road, why not the holes in a culture? How many would it take to fill the Albert Hall? The question is surreal and exact at once. It turns infrastructure into existentialism. The bureaucratic mind collides with the cosmic, and Lennon lets the sparks fly. But a day in the life isn't only Lennon's dream state. It breathes because another sensibility interrupts it. Paul McCartney's brisk, everyday rhythm. In the song, it's as if an alarm clock goes off inside a hallucination. Suddenly we're awake. Feet on the rug, comb through hair, late for school, cup of tea, missed bus, smoke. These aren't lyrics so much as muscle memory. McCartney doesn't narrate. He remembers, and his memory has the speed of a city morning. Where Lennon observes from a distance, McCartney inhabits the body. Where Lennon watches a life end, McCartney carries one forward, by habit, by timetable, by small comforts and escapes. That interruption is the song's first turning point, and it reveals what A Day in the Life is actually about: the collision of the monumental and the mundane, the way the headlines drift across the surface of our days while our hands still reach for the same routines. The Beatles don't choose between those worlds. They splice them together, then ask us to bear the seam. To stitch those halves, they invent a sound that hadn't existed in pop, an orchestra not playing a melody, but climbing chaos. Producer George Martin and engineer Geoff Emerick brought in dozens of classical musicians and told them, in effect, to begin on the lowest note of their instruments and rise to the highest, each at their own pace, a controlled explosion over 24 bars. The score was part precision, part permission, and it turned the studio into a human crescendo. In the middle of that climb, Mal Evans counted the bars aloud into the mic to keep time, and someone set an alarm clock to mark the entrance to McCartney's section. It was supposed to be a reference track, a practical detail in a room of splendour, but the clock stayed. Its ring became the portal between dream and daylight, art and accident. That too is the point, profound meaning assembled out of the ordinary clatter of a real day. If the orchestral swells sound like panic rising, it's because they are. They enact the anxiety of being alive to too much at once. Noise without a centre spills into a single, astonishing solution. The biggest E major chord the band could make, struck on pianos by many hands at once and allowed to ring until the room itself seems to breathe. After turbulence, a horizon. After disarray, the illusion of clarity. It is not God descending. It's four musicians and their friends leaning on keys, and somehow that makes it more moving. It is man-made transcendence, the most human kind. The conflicts around the song weren't only musical. When Lennon sang "I'd Love to Turn You On," the BBC heard a drug reference and banned the track. The era was tangled in psychedelia, and the line had a wink baked into it. But the Beatles' defence that the song was about the dislocation of the modern mind wasn't a dodge. It was the truth. The ban, like the pothole article, became part of the meaning. Authority tried to clear the mess by declaring it unfit. The band replied with art that insisted the mess was the message. So, what is a day then in the life about? It is about the emotional physics of modernity. How a city counts its cavities while a friend's car burns in the night. How the smoke of a morning cigarette can blur with the haze of collective grief. How the machinery of news, buses and clocks runs on, indifferent, while somewhere inside each passenger a private universe collapses or is born. It is also about the Beatles themselves at a pivot. Lennon's detached witnessing and McCartney's embodied momentum aren't opposites here. They're halves of a single consciousness. The song lets Lennon's voice lift us out of our skins and McCartney's voice pull us back in. The orchestra doesn't just bridge two verses, it bridges two ways of knowing. The studio becomes a theatre where these selves meet, quarrel, and finally agree to end the day on one note they can share. Listen closely, and you can hear the age negotiating itself. The press turns tragedy into copy. Art turns copy back into tragedy. Routine hums. Revelation intrudes. The day refuses to resolve neatly. So they give us a resolution so enormous it feels like a joke and a prayer. And just when it seems finished, there's a high tone meant for dogs and a locked groove of nonsense, because days don't end. They loop. Our minds want closure. Life offers recurrence. In less than 5 minutes, a day in the life compresses a century's worth of contradictions. It is not about a single day. It is about how every day is both ordinary and unendurable, numbing and unbearable, comedic and catastrophic, and how we keep waking up anyway. It asks us to listen to the noise rise, to feel the panic crest, to sit with the silence, and to notice that somewhere between the newspaper and the teacup, between the car crash and the comb, we are alive.